Hi, everyone. Definitely my turn to start. Welcome back to the Conscious Cowboys. I feel like it's been a minute. Don't you feel like that?
But it hasn't. It's been the same amount of time as always.
Yeah, which is crazy because I feel like the last week has maybe felt like a month. And for no particular reason.
Yeah, I was just about to ask why.
Wow. No, I don't. There's no, nothing I can think about really. But it's just, I feel like a lot happens each and every day.
This is true. We really try to pack it in.
We really pack it in. Seriously. I just spit so much. Did you see?
No, I wasn't looking.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Hopefully no one else was.
No one can see it.
They rewind. They're like, all right. Well, well, okay. So first little segment is we want to talk about the burnout that we've experienced, which is a lot more than burnout, and we'll explain.
Yeah. Okay. So remember when we took a week off and we were like, we just can't do this right now.
They're like, we don't remember.
Yeah, it was so long ago.
Don't actually care.
No. Okay, if you don't care, then see you fucking later.
Sayonara.
Yeah.
No.
You say sayonara a lot, like maybe more than anyone
Do I?
I know. Not maybe on the podcast, but just in real life, I feel like you say it kind of often.
Oh my God. I feel like maybe my dad says it a lot or something. And maybe that's why you hear it.
Oh.
Yeah. Because I don't know how often I actually say it. You won't hear it for another year.
No, she now overthinks it. Okay, well, we took a week off, especially if you're a new listener. Hey, what's up? We took a week off, and that's unlike us because we've been podcasting every single week for like years straight at this point. Okay?
Yeah, 2.
Yeah. I make it sound like it's 10.
8 years. One day we'll be saying that.
Yeah, that'll be
We're
cool.
going to stick with this for a long time.
But okay, so
anyway,
a few weeks ago we took a beat, and we didn't really go into detail as to why. We kind of mentioned like life was really hectic, and it was, but I think the main dagger that really like stopped us hard in our tracks is we made an episode about something that happened in our lives, and we included a little bit of detail about something that I don't know how I even want to word this.
Well, I was just going to say, without even going into it again and opening that up, is that we made an episode based off of an experience that we had. And so naturally it included other people who then heard that podcast episode.
Or didn't and heard like the social media clip.
Correct.
That we made.
And did not get the full picture of what the episode was even about, which is okay. But we had, at the end of every episode or within each episode, we come up with a main point or ideas that we want to hit to better the collective. Like that's like literally partly why we make podcast episodes is because we want to have advice and like from our experience, we talk about it and then we have like, it's incorrect, I think, to say like a coming to Jesus moment, but just like to share the lessons that we learned.
Yeah.
And so that is why we made that episode, but it was misconstrued and it was taken out of context in so many ways, and the backlash that we received from that was really
it was overwhelming.
Right. Yeah,
is how we can word it, because I just think that our intentions are very pure, and if you've been a long time listener of the Cowboys, then you know that to be true. And we try so hard, like we are such good people to the core, and when it felt like that wasn't being recognized and like we were being shorted in that way, I felt like the wind got taken out of our sails.
Yes.
And we were like really kind of stunted for a moment of, okay, well, no one is actually like giving us the credit here that we feel like we deserved on that. I don't know. It's just like a lot of things happened where we felt like, okay, rug got ripped out from underneath us, and it made us question, can we do this?
Yeah, totally.
Because it felt like, okay, if we can't share our truth, and if that's going to get misconstrued, as you said, that's really frustrating. But then we also need to be able to kind of body when the backlash comes our way. And this was really probably the first time that we've experienced anything like that.
Yes.
And so naturally there's a bit of a learning curve to it of like, okay, whoa, like we've never experienced that before. How are we going to go about this? And so we needed to take a moment of like, well, I just like in that moment, I didn't feel creative. I didn't feel invested. I didn't feel like I wanted to share, because it felt like, okay, well I shared and then I got like it wasn't received.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want to share then.
Yeah. And there are a couple of things to add on to that made the sting worse, was that it was taken out of context with people who know us And so we thought, like, how, like, you know who we are to the core. Like, how could you think that about us just based off of this one episode? And also, we have a lot of things going on in our lives behind the scenes more than this podcast. And it was already hard to add that in, just made it like, it really did blow it out of proportion in a way, like in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made it hurt way worse. So
Yeah.
that's different to our situation too. But
so now we're
still,
here.
Yeah.
And Madison and I looked at each other after the last episode because we felt like, okay, like we took a week off and then it was like kind of a slow start. We just have not felt like ourselves on the episodes. And like we've been ourselves, but not our usual lively, like fun, upbeat selves. We've just been taking it easy and like keeping it really mellow. And there's time and place for that for sure. But that doesn't necessarily feel like the messages we want to be sharing week over week. So when I was leaving this past weekend and I looked at Madison on the way out and I was like, I have an idea for this week. I like want to talk about this. I definitely want to include what we just talked about. Like, I feel like, okay, I no one's going to blow the wind back into our sails. Like, we have to do that.
Yes.
We have to get remotivated. We have to get excited and believe in ourselves and trust ourselves again. Like, even though it kind of like got wild for a second, in the long run, it's not that big of a deal. It's certainly not something like that event cannot be the reason that I stop doing this dream.
Right.
So for me, I was like, fuck it. Like, let's just send it again. Like, let's just go back to who we are and speak freely the way that we intend to and know that our intentions are pure and we might fuck up along the way. And if we do, like, we're going to own our stuff. But
yeah. And that was a totally good learning lesson. Although we didn't like being called out on that, like it was good to experience that just so we could bounce back and remind ourselves like why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah. And I think that we try really hard to take everybody in our life into account when we're going and sitting down and recording episodes, because if you're in our life, you're not.
That's a whole other thing to talk about. Yes,
yeah.
continue.
Like if you're in our life, you're not necessarily subjected to be on the episodes. Like I can imagine having a best friend who has a podcast and like, I don't know. I don't think I'd care as long as my name and like some of the details are left out of the equation. But I know a lot of people are more private than I am. So they don't necessarily want to be included in the conversation in that way. Like they don't want to be talked about.
Right.
So it's hard. It's like you have to find the balance of how do you share about your life without giving too much information about the people in your life and the events that they're included in.
Yeah, and we
That's
have conversations about that all the time. It is really hard, and the light is like changing because it's very cloudy outside, but it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is really hard, and we have conversations about that all the time. Like if we could only just like share even more openly, like how amazing that would be. But we also don't want to air out people's dirty laundry, you know?
Yeah, not even that we would be doing that, but it just, again, it's like,
what can we say?
yeah.
Yeah.
We are learning that.
Yes.
And it's going to be different with every single person in our life, right? Like my mom per se, you know, like she's a very open person. She might not care if I share some things, but then like say, I don't know, I mean, not that my brother is like this, but say maybe my brother would be like, yo, let's not talk about me, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just really person to person and situation too. Like what am I talking about?
Yeah.
If it's like a fun, lighthearted story, I'm sure people are like, yeah, go ahead, talk about it. But if it's something like, you know, we had a fucking negative experience, then obviously that person's going to be like, please don't talk about it.
Right. That's why we tried to do, which we understand that because, I don't want people saying explicit details about, you know, a situation that I had with someone. But that's why we were so careful to not say too many details in that last episode. Not that we need to like stick up for ourselves again because we already been there, done that. But we do try very hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, another thing that I'd add to that is, I think maybe I said this in another episode, I don't know. But we had a talk on the hike that we went on after we got the backlash that day or that week. And I was telling Tess that I was feeling like very vulnerable that day. I think just because of like everything that had happened. But we are pretty vulnerable on this podcast. Like even posting anything, if it was like a skit that we were doing or like a Q&A, like that's vulnerable to put out to the world. And when it's not received in the way that like you want it to be, because it's like literally our most authentic selves, we're just like, like that is a bad feeling, you know? And not that we can control how people perceive us or like receive our information, but I fully understand why that like took us by surprise and why it felt so shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. But with all of that in mind, it just feels good to, I think we needed that in the scheme of things. Like we needed that. So then we could remind ourselves like, no, this is our purpose. Like this is what we want for ourselves. And we need to continue to push on no matter what comes up. Like this was a very small thing that happened. And this is like a very easy learning lesson, I think, for us. And we can grow and learn from it and be better in our own ways of like, all right. But it's just, it was fucked up, guys.
Oh my God.
So I'm just glad that we're back and that we are remotivated.
Yeah.
And just feeling good.
Me too.
Cool. Okay. The next thing.
I was about to say something really funny, but it would have really
thrown
you under the bus. So I'm not going to say it. I was going to say that I'm glad that you just wiped your nose after you touched my hand.
Well, you already got sick from me, so I feel like
That's
that ship sailed.
Because we make out too much.
I know. I forgot the joke I was telling with my mom.
Oh, yeah. It was about like me being a good kisser or something.
Or something like my mom had called me on the phone and I don't remember what details she was asking. I don't know. It was probably about my dating life or something because she always wants to know the details, right? And then I was like, no, Mom, I'm dating Madison. And then she's like, stop it. Like, she knows I'm kidding. And I was like, no, Mom, seriously. Like, we sleep together every night. And she's like, Tess, just like not putting up with my shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, Mom, we literally have sex every night.
Yeah, I was like, ah! Like, I was in the background. I just started laughing my ass off. I was like, dude, that phrase. Oh, man.
I
was
love
great.
it.
Okay, transitioning.
On that note, on the note of dating and stuff. It doesn't have to be the person you're dating, but I have this history, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, where I have in the past glamorized the idea of someone instead of allowing things to be like what they are. And I like kind of revisited that feeling when I saw someone in public that I had previously glamorized in my head of like, wow, this person is it. Like maybe glamorized is not the right, like glorified, right? On paper, this person checked all my boxes. I was really excited about them. And I like really created this idea in my head of this person is like it. Like this is like a great catch. This is someone I want to date. I want to be with. I want to pursue. And then the actions and the reality did not match up to the story I created in my head. And so when I saw this person in public, I told Madison about it and I was like, oh my gosh, like, And then what was your response to me? It was money. I can pull it up.
Okay.
Let me just.
I was like, wait, I don't remember.
I needed the reality check. Also, give me a sec because we've texted a lot. But essentially, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate with that because my God, I know I've done it more times than once.
Yeah.
You maybe not as much, but you definitely have good advice for someone who maybe doesn't do it a lot.
Yeah, I know. I feel like whatever I said, I need to remember it again.
Here we go.
So
it was Friday.
She saw someone in a coffee shop and she texted me right after.
Okay, here we go. Found it.
Amazing.
I was like, why does the universe put blank in my path? Like, come on. And then she's like, okay, gotta know. It's one of those scream out to the sky, why moments, because we talk about it all the time. There's so many things that come up.
Sometimes shit happens and we're like, why? Like, literally why? Please.
Like, this isn't fucking funny or fair.
It's like, what am I supposed to learn here? Please just fucking give it to me right now.
So then I gave her the music. Or not the music. What the hell? Music? I don't know music. Why I said music? Okay, I gave her the details. Jesus, of like and I was like looking better than ever. Like, come on, why?
Yeah.
And then she's like, gotta go, not right. And I was like, it's irritating. And she's like, the idea of him is cooler. Wait, the idea of him is cool. Remember that, not real. Yeah. And I was like, that's the reality check I needed.
Right.
Like, the idea in my head of this person is really cool. But the reality of this person in my life is not what I want.
Right.
Like this person might actually be really cool, but how this person was showing up in my life was not cool.
Right. And we were talking about this beforehand, before recording, and we were trying to go through how, if someone doesn't have someone to give them advice of like, oh, that's not real, like remember that. how could we go about not glamorizing those people? And I was telling Tess that even though it's hard, sometimes I try to take emotions. I'm going to put it on the table. I try to take emotions out of things as much as I can, although I do think that they're very beneficial sometimes. But in regard to that, I feel like I just look at the facts. Like, what have they shown me? How did they show up in my life? That is actually like so far from what I had thought in my head of who, that's just like getting really wordy, of who I thought they were. It's completely different. So like those are the facts, and just take it at face value. Like it's almost like it's really that simple. Like why invest so much energy emotionally if that is what they're giving you and it's a falsehood?
Yeah, because your perception of this person is your perception, right? Like it's what you've told yourself that they are. And
yeah, it's like bringing it back around with the narrative thing.
Yeah,
like
that can
always
take you,
talked about that.
It can take you on a ride, right? You're just like, oh my gosh, this person is so great. And like, how fun would it be? And like, you just start like spiraling in your head. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. Why am I even thinking of all this when like, this is how they show up in my life?
Yeah. And I even try and challenge, like when you're spiraling like that, I do my best to challenge those thoughts. Like if I can, I try to, because like, why do we believe everything that we say anyway? Like who's saying that? You know, like sometimes you have like this weird voice in your head and you're like, who the fuck is that?
What, of just like how great they are, or like how hot they are, whatever.
Yeah, and like saying like, oh, since they don't like you, like you're now inadequate. And it's just like, actually no.
Yeah.
It's like you have like two different voices in your head. It's like the first one that like goes for the attack, and then it's like the second one's like the cool one that like calms you down.
Yeah. And I know that, okay, since you brought this up, a lot of times when you feel like someone doesn't like you or they're like not as interested as you are, how that can feel like a really big blow to the ego, right? Where you're just like, what? And you start to maybe question like, am I not great? Like, how is this person not seeing it? But I think the frustration lies is like, a lot of times you know you're great and you know you've got a lot to offer, and like, okay, you check all your own boxes, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just frustrating when I'm like, I know that I'm cool and like would be a fucking great time to date. But they don't see that, and that's frustrating.
Right.
And then, but there is no fix for that other than like, you just have to accept that and move on and be like, well, they don't see my value. Then like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm not for them.
Of course, it's like the age old saying of like, why would you want someone that doesn't want you? Because then if you're like upset that they don't want you, that's still the idea in your head of that person is like, they would be like enamored with me and they would love me. But that's just not
It's delusional.
Yeah, it is. It is a delusion. Yeah. For the most part.
Yeah. It's just a humbling experience, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting to like go back and forth with it. And I feel, and hopefully if you like confront your friends about that and talk with them about the situation, they have your back and they're like, oh, well, not even of like, oh, fuck them. It's just like, no, they're not right. It's just not, you're not who they want, and they're not who you want. I
think that there's like a fine dance, right? Especially as a friend. Like, I don't want a friend who's going to be like, yeah, fuck them, right? Because that doesn't help. That's immature to me. And then that's like a whole different thing. I need to be reminded of like, it in the long run is okay if you and this person don't match up.
Right.
Like, not every single person you meet is meant to be your person, you know?
Yeah.
Like, things come into your life, things happen, and like, what can you take away from them? And did you have fun? Did you learn something? What did you experience? And then let it go.
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about too, is that to have more of like an abundance mindset with it, of like something else that's potentially better is going to come around. Like always having that thought, you know?
Yeah. You're very good with that. I know a lot of people who, when things aren't working out, they just get in the trenches of like, well, fuck, like I've been trying and trying and trying and trying.
Yeah, I think that, well, because then I was just thinking of like, I don't always think like if I have something good that like something better is going to come along. So I need to like get rid of that person. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if there's any idea in my head of like, oh, I might be settling with this experience or with this person, then I remind myself that, okay, well, you don't need to hold on so tightly to this. Like there's so many possibilities out there, like literally limitless possibilities. So it's okay if you want to like pivot and go elsewhere, like you're going to be great.
It's really, really nice to live with Madison and have these like little reminders sprinkled into my day. Not that I don't already kind of think like that, but that is so your story. That it's like, fuck, like, that's unwavering in you. You're like, well, nope. Also, can we just talk about how Madison has a crush on someone or like is into someone? It's like, all right, cool, like game on. She's laser focused and into it. But then if there's like even a hint of something, or like Madison can see what she doesn't like, and she like makes a decision right there in the moment of like, nah, that's not gonna work then. And I feel like you're just like cut and dry and you move on.
Yeah.
And you can separate your emotion from things and you just carry on, and it's really amazing. I'm like, what species are you? Like, what breed are you? Are you same breed as me?
Oh shit.
It's wild.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't even know how to explain it. It's very like cutthroat, I feel like sometimes, you know? But then I also think like, well, it's okay to like know what I want and don't want, and it's okay to like move on.
Yeah. Like, why spin your wheels over something that you know is like, meh.
Yes.
You know, if it's not like 100% or at least like up there, you know, it doesn't have to be 100, but like if it's not up there, then like let's just swipe our paws clean and move on.
I know. I think it's because, and I was telling Tess this too, is that I have like a huge thing in my life of I never want to settle for anything. So then when something comes along and it's just not it, I like have the idea of like, I can't settle. Like I'd rather live a life of like being a single nomad or whatever, you know, like wandering the fucking world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Than being like held down in a situation where it's just like, fuck, this is it. Like we only get one life. Why would I do that?
It's a good reality check, I think, personally.
Yeah. And I was going to say, is that we were also talking about crushes. It's really interesting too, is that I read this thing and I was like, oh my God, that's so accurate. Is that a crush is just a lack of information.
Okay.
And I was like, hold on. Fuck. Isn't that crazy?
What is that? What?
Well, because I was
because it's like the allure of someone, like the idea of someone.
It's like my idea is like a story that I wrote of like, oh, I saw these characteristics. I hung out with them twice, like, and they look a certain way. Like, oh my God, I have like a crush on them because I think they're gonna be this way. And then you actually experience them, and you're like, that wasn't quite what I had imagined. So I'm just gonna move on. Thank you. Bye.
A lack of information.
Interesting. But then not always, but a lot of the time.
Because you feel like, okay, so if you have a crush on someone and it does pan out, right?
Then you like them.
So it moves past the crush phase, and now we're in the liking phase.
Yes.
And then the loving.
Right. I was like, oh.
Interesting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Food for thought.
Yeah. I know. I thought on that for like a few days. I was like, fuck, that's not wrong. Yeah.
Lack of information. That's scary.
It's really interesting because I'm like, yeah, that's true, because I feel like I have crushes all the time. Like literally I'll be walking and I see someone in Whole Foods and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. You know, and it's just like a little thing. Like you have this feeling of like,
Yeah.
And then if I actually were to go on a date with them, then I would decide like, do I like this person? You know?
My hands are freezing right now.
Oh.
Like I just felt them. I was like hugging myself. I'm like, I'm really cold right now. And then my hands feel like icicles.
They get like your nails get kind of purple. That's kind of what's happening. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Poor circulation, you know?
The mic was on the other side.
Poor circulation.
Okay, I'm trying to think if there was anything else that we had slated for this.
I feel like that was really all. I feel like we did it.
Yeah, so long story short, don't let people take the wind out of your sails. Stick to your mission. You're allowed to have moments of like, oh, shit. Yeah. And then you just got to get back up on that horse, right?
Yeah.
Can't let it slow you down for too long.
Yeah, and in our situation, we love this so much, and we really do have a clear vision as to why we started this. So to let those little things take us down is just
silly.
Not worth it.
But it was an accumulation of like, someone remember that
bad
review? Someone wrote a bad review about how we're a fucking echo chamber, and then it was that right after, and then like a lot of personal stuff, and it was just too much.
It was like a scream to the sky of like,
why? And then you see, you know, someone that you thought you liked down at a coffee shop, and then you're like,
exactly.
Why?
You're fully spiraling, and you're like, I can't do this. Yeah.
And then crushes, and apparently all they are is just a lack of information. And then you're like, why?
Yeah. And I'm like, maybe not wrong. Then I separate the emotion from it, and I just read that, and I'm like, oh, okay. I could see that. I could also like see arguments against that, but for me personally, I agree with that.
I think that there's a lot of power to be found in separating your emotion from things.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, right? You don't want to detach entirely. But when you need to like use your critical thinking brain, let's just like, we got to make a decision sometimes. Let's maybe take emotion out of the equation. Not always.
Yeah,
'Cause
not always.
A lot of
course.
emotions are good indicators of like what you should pursue.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you're getting weird with yourself, you're thinking too much into things, cool it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people have the argument against like women leading, because we're so like emotional, but which is like maybe true, or we're like allowed to be in tune with our emotions, but we're also able to separate it and look at a situation, quote unquote, like a man. So
Yeah. The gender thing always makes me giggle,
Yeah. Yes, I do know.
Okay,
But anyway, that was great.
Yeah, I feel like, I just like being here with you, Madison. So thanks for being willing to push on, even though you get some things that come up.
Yeah.
So thanks.
It's just weird. Life is so weird. Sometimes I have like, when did this happen to me? On Saturday, I think. I was just
going.
like, I know. We're literally known for this, but that's so funny, is that I was walking in the apartment on Saturday and I was here alone, and I just like went to go sit on the couch. Like I was walking to the couch from the kitchen, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is our life. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Like I have those moments a lot, especially recently, where I'm just like, oh my God, wow. Like who would have thought that life would look like this? It's really like, it's really like a lot.
Yeah.
I know. But I've been having that a lot recently, especially just because like new things have been coming up of like things you have to deal with as like, because you become an adult, and it's just like shit gets tough sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm just like, wow, I'm seriously like impressed with us for handling it. And also like all of my friends, like you guys literally all do. Like you pay your bills, you do your laundry, you like have rent to pay, like you go to a job every day. Like that's like amazing.
Kudos, everybody.
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy. Something that we saw that you showed me, and we've talked about this also, you and I don't think we've mentioned it on the app, but like when life feels really hard, recognize like how much you do alone that typically we do as like a collective.
Oh, yeah. It was like a tweet that I saw that was talking about burnout. And it was like saying, how are we surprised that we feel burnout? Because we're doing so many tasks that we feel that we should be independently doing, when in history or throughout history, we did them as groups.
Yeah. Like raising children and
like hunting
cooking.
and gathering.
Yeah. Like, okay, so we wake up, we go to work, first we have to like get ourselves ready and prepared for the day, right? Then we go to work and we have to take care of other people. And then we have to cook for ourselves and fit in laundry and clean, and also like try to exercise and also try to have a little bit of fun so we don't feel crazy. We have to do all of this when like some people were just home cooking all day. And some people were out getting the work done, and some people were raising the children. But no, now it's all up to us to do all of the jobs.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And I don't know if that's just like our society, like in America or like in modern societies that preach that idea of like being independent and like very self-sufficient, which I think is like really great, but it's also a good reminder that we can ask for help, and that's not embarrassing.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that's a great place to end, right?
Okay, we'll actually end. Yeah. We got a good 28 minutes.
Sexy.
Love it.
Great.
Hopefully you enjoyed. That was I feel like we did, that was great. As I already said, we did a good job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Applauding
we
ourselves.
gotta clap for ourselves, honestly, because
sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's some people that want to drag you down, and we're just,
just gonna keep
we're
clapping.
Moving on.
Good job. I would try to give you a high five or hold your hand, but you always get like weird about that. So I'm just like, good job.
Oh, I already did it one time.
Yeah, I can't do it twice.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
It's not good. Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys make sure, if you haven't already, we should say this at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I was listening to the Inspired Unemployed. I know, we keep going. But at the end, they were talking like, hey, guys, if you could just like, give us a 5-star review or whatever, however many stars, leave a fucking review for us, comment, whatever. And he's like, no one's listening. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Probably no one's listening.
And
anymore.
I'm listening.
Yeah, I was listening. And I
I'm
thought it was
always
really
listening.
funny. Yeah, of course I listened to like all their
Literally
episodes.
anything you put out,
I
I'm listening.
love them.
Yes.
But yeah, so anyway, if you're listening, thank you so much. You're the fucking best, honestly.
Yeah.
And we hope that today's conversations helped you out or at least entertained you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, until next week.
Talk soon.